Alexis, man, I am so psyched to meet you. I've been thinking about this all day. It's like, okay, great. It's like this is the first time we've met. So we're kind of doing this live, on the podcast. So nice to meet you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's nice to meet you too. Excited to be here today.
Yeah, awesome, great. Well, we got a lot to talk about, but I thought first what would be really great is for everyone, like you're really well known, but like just like to make sure everyone kind of knows who you are and kind of what you do. Let's maybe first start a little bit like career path, kind of like what brought you to like where you are right now, and then we'll talk about your
Sure.
role at Megaport. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I can do that. So for those who aren't familiar with me, my name's Alexis Bertholf. I am a, how do I describe what I do now? It used to be very cut and dry. I
Hmm.
started my career in IT about 4 years ago as a Cisco SE. I spent some time with Cisco. Really, prior to that, I had no background in the tech industry at all. But I came in as a junior solutions engineer. I spent about a year and a half training on all things, Cisco networking, CCNA, CCNP, and started working with some customers out in the DMV area to help support them, as their Cisco SE. I did that for about 4 years. And during that time, it was the weird COVID time, right?
Oh,
And
true. Yeah.
I started creating some content on the side. TikTok was coming up during COVID, and I figured that it was a really good way to practice talking about technology. It started out with little memes and jokes and voiceovers, and eventually I realized it was a really good way to help get information out to a lot of people. There's a lot of customers who aren't as privileged to have access to the most recent, information or news or technology. And so it was a really good way to share what I was learning as I was learning it and help more people on their career journeys. So I've been creating content for about a year and a half now.
Mm.
And I just recently accepted a new role with Megaport.
Nice. Well, I tell you, I really love your videos. And okay, so I've been in the industry for like 35 years or something like that, And so when when I started, everyone was like kind of hands on keyboards, and there was actually it didn't have CLI, even at that time. We were using kind of mini computers for routers, and there were no switches. They were kind of like it was just a cable, that we had these vampire clips that kind of clipped into it, and so and there clearly it was there was no internet either, during those times, so I what I love about what you do is that there are so many different acronyms, that we have created. We have created a language really around
Really have.
what we do. And and if you're not plugged into that language, you are clueless, and then it makes you feel, not you, but it makes somebody feel less than, or it makes them feel stupid, okay, if someone's using some term, some acronym, and you're like, oh, I should know what that is. I don't know what that is. So I love how you explain things, and it's like I'll learn from them. It's like even being in the industry for all this time. I'm like, oh, that's what that means, and so I love that. I really think that you did such a great job, and you do such a great job. The last one that I saw that you did, which I thought was like, okay, was that you? It might have been you. I thought it was around John Capabianco's.
Yep.
Yeah,
AI hosted on a Switch.
yeah, yeah. So I thought that was like really, really great. Just going into that kind of level of detail of it, what it is, where it sits. Obviously that was around a 9K and using one of the cores within the 9K. But I thought that was just really great. So anyway, hats
I
off, and
appreciate it.
yeah, I just want to thank you for
Yeah,
like what you do. That's really great.
I appreciate it. It's a lot of fun too, right? Like
Hmm.
I've met so many cool people like yourself and been exposed to opportunities that I literally wouldn't have ever known existed. I mean, that's what my job at Megaport basically is going to be doing now. But really, what I'd like my platform to be is exactly what you said, right? Exposing people who are already in the industry to new technology, helping them learn and stay up to date with all of the things going on, because there are a lot of things going on. But then also make IT seem less scary, right? Or
Mm,
tech seem less scary to those on the outside who are maybe curious about joining or don't know where to start. I did a video, gosh, this was probably 3 weeks ago now. It was how the undersea cables connect the world, and most people don't know they exist, right? And I'd really like to
mm,
start doing more things like that, educating the general public how IT and network engineering ties into our daily lives, and we take it for
yeah,
granted, and we never think about it, right? Because the network always works. We
yeah.
only notice when it doesn't. And so just taking some time to educate the general public on like how the underlying technology and our daily lives work, and maybe pull some more people into the field because of that.
When we need it, we so desperately need it. There's such a shortage of network engineers, security engineers, and so I think your eyes of the industry is like so valuable right now because it's like okay, it's almost like I've been in it for a long time, so there's certain things that I see that I kind of ignore because it's not, uh, I guess, just because
Yeah.
where
You get used
where
to it.
yeah,
It's
I guess that's it. It's like wallpaper,
right. You're
kind of
like, oh, this
blind.
is just how this it's always here. It's how it always was.
Yeah, where your eyes, you see things, new, and what's curious to you, may not be curious, to someone like who's been around here for a long time. So I love that. I love that perspective, that you offer. And I think the other thing too, and it's really the last point that you raise, is that I think as an industry, we have not done a really good job in recruiting the next generation. So that's also one of the reasons why I'm so excited that you and John are emceeing the AI networking summit. It's like is to make sure that a younger generation, a new generation, feels welcome, and not only welcomed, is that encouraged, to come in and participate and be part of this and have a voice, on where the industry is going and the direction of it. So when I'm pumped,
Absolutely.
I'm totally pumped that you're like in that you're going to be part of this, and and that how it all kind of maps into what you've been doing kind of online.
Yeah,
So
and you can see some of that in my comment section too, right? Sometimes I'll do a really basic video and half of the comments are, "This is so cool. I had no idea." And the other 50%
mm,
are, "This is so basic, you idiot. You should have known that." Right? Why are you talking about this? And it's a double-edged
uh,
sword, right?
right,
But I like,
mm,
being out on a public forum, because then you can hear all of that and get a pulse for where people are at. So when you talk about things that are a little more controversial, like you mentioned the AI hosting on an edge switch, how do people feel about that? Right? There's a
yeah,
level of uncomfortableness there when you're hosting extra things on your access layer switches. How does the industry feel about that? Right? It's a way to get a pulse on where
mm,
people's heads are at in a very low risk way.
yeah,
But as far as recruiting more younger people to come to the industry, I think social media is a great place to start. And I think that a lot of tech companies have mostly approached social media from a marketing perspective and less from a community building perspective.
yeah,
I know a lot of the major vendors have their own IT communities, whether they're hosted on, Discord or like company forums, right? Like there's the Cisco community, there's a Juniper community, there's an Aruba community, there's a Zoom community, but less so much on social media. And it's something that's so prevalent. I mean, I'm 27, right? I've had a phone since I was 13 years old, so we're going
mm,
on more than 10 years now, which is terrifying.
yeah,
Um, but it's something that the kids today are so familiar with. We're very accustomed to following influencers, whether it's for fitness, for cooking, celebrities, sports, finance, you name it. There's no reason that
mm,
we shouldn't have like career based influencers too.
Yeah, I'm so with you, and I think it is needed because like we never had that in our industry before. Like, it's we never really you never really got to meet other people other than going to conferences,
Right.
or you would meet, if you're in IT, you would meet the salespeople who represent the vendors in which you're buying equipment from, but you would hardly even meet your peers in companies that are in the same industry, let alone different industries, And so now we can do that, and that's and having people who are vocal, not in a, well, it could be a good way or a bad way, but um, kind of role models or influencers, people who are just trying to like do some good for the industry. That is like a wonderful, wonderful thing. We never had that before,
Well,
and so
and also it helps you carry, when you develop those relationships or you meet people at conferences, it helps you carry that relationship forward because maybe you only meet once a year, but you can interact on Twitter
yeah,
every day. You can follow someone on Instagram every day, right? And when we have more people who are out there sharing their knowledge, sharing their experience, it helps everyone become better, right?
yeah,
And it's funny you mentioned like meeting at conferences. I had Megaport. I convinced them somehow to
mm,
hold a happy hour at Cisco Live, and we called it like
mm,
the network engineering community happy hour. I don't know.
yeah.
And John Capobianco came over, and he was like, "This is so amazing. It's like Twitter come to life." Right, all of these people that I see on my feeds on this, like every day, they're all here in person at the same event. It's so cool.
Yeah,
And so then you get to do things like that too, right?
yeah. That actually, that is like I've experienced that, before. That is really cool when it happens. You're right. It's almost like your social engagement becomes real life. It's like that intersection
Right.
between like virtual and real collide.
Yeah, 100%.
All right, so then what are you doing at Megaport? In a nutshell.
So my technical title is a global technical evangelist. I love the team over at Megaport. I think everyone knows I've been partnering with them for almost a year now. But they're sitting at a really interesting place in the industry, with more developments and network as a service, as we're seeing more like GPU as a service come online. They've basically built out a global WAN connecting everything that customers can plug into on demand, right?
Hmm.
Which is one really beneficial for customers, but also very beneficial for me because they're partnering with so many companies across the industry.
Mm,
It lets me personally expand my mission of being more vendor agnostic, dip my toes into new technologies, stay on the cutting edge of where technology is at to continue educating people of what's really going on. And as part of that, because Megaport is, they connect so many things, they are basically vendor agnostic. We
mm,
can build like this global tech community to help everyone help each other. So I guess that's kind of what I'm doing there.
yeah,
I'm also going to be helping with some strategic messaging, simplifying technology, all of the things that I do online. I'll be doing some of that behind the scenes too. But
yeah.
I'm really excited. I think it's going to be great.
Awesome. Well, Megaport's a great company. They support the community at Onog, and they're going to be part of the AI Networking Summit. And like they're right at the heart of really what we've always been talking about. So it's like whether we were really focused around multi-cloud and hybrid cloud connectivity, or kind of the SD-WAN market, which was about a decade ago, or now really kind of everyone's trying to focus on what does the NAS market provide, value there. So anyway, so I'm happy to have them. And also, we brought you on before you were part of Megaport, so I just want to make sure everyone knows it because
I know it was a happy coincidence.
yeah.
Nick and the team had asked me to come and MC what, like a month ago. I said yes, and they were like, "What do
Hmm.
you want me to put your title as?" I was like, "Well, as long as it's after October 7th, you can say Evangelist of Megaport." And they were like, "No way."
Way. Perfect.
uh,
All right, so let's like so the couple of like industry questions, are really
sure.
discussion points, right? So so how are you viewing so like this new transition that we're kind of into, where AI promises to change a lot of different things? Uh, what's your view? What do you think, like how AI is going to impact kind of networks and network infrastructure?
Yeah. I really think we're at an inflection point, and it's kind of one of those things there. Things are going to change so quickly, right? I think at least from the customers that I had spoke to before I left Cisco, just no one wants to get left behind. That's the
Hmm.
general feeling, right? Everyone's trying to adopt it as quickly as possible because you're afraid that if you don't, you're going to get left behind and then you're going to be behind. As far as how it's going to change things, it's kind of hard to say. There's different, like when you look at, you talk about AI and technology, there's the actual AI itself, and then there's things like building generative AI assistants, the AI ML and products that we were already kind of doing. It's now just more at the
Right.
forefront, right?
Yeah.
There's multiple angles you can take, um, but I think we've already seen more, more chatbots come online, more um, AI at least being marketed. I don't know if it's the same AI they had before, if it's more we're adding in. Um, but yeah,
I know it's everybody's speculating, so it's always good to get like everybody's speculation, on this topic. You know, to me, it's like I'm starting to see kind of categories of products coming into the marketplace, and it's like there are AI agents, right? And those are devices that kind of do a task for you. There's co-pilots, um, that kind of collaborative, kind of chatbots that you can work to try to solve a problem collaboratively together.
right,
There are tools like the thing that you were talking about that John put together. I would view that as a tool, So there's like kind of AI tools, and then there are like AI native products that are really kind of the reimagining. And I think you alluded to this, as well. It's like, we have routers and switches and load balancers and firewalls, and all these a plethora of different devices that are, that kind of support an application. So it's like the application's dependency map. And a lot of companies are now reevaluating, reimagining, going back to first principles about what is that product supposed to do, and how could we make it better if we, were able to kind of leverage some aspect of AI. And so I think those are kind of AI networking products. And the best one I can think of right now is like Hypershield, which
yep,
Cisco launched. And actually, Tom Gillis was at the Dallas, gathering at the summit, and he talked about that. So I don't know. That's the way I'm kind of viewing, the market. Do you have a different view?
no, not necessarily. I do think from a co-pilot or tool perspective, I mean, even as like an end user myself, it's one thing to build it. It's another thing for it to see adoption because I do think that we're in this, like everyone has their own workflow.
Yeah,
I You could build all of the AI tools, but even like myself, I started using Claude recently, and it started as I'll test this out and see how it goes. Right? If you test
yeah,
something out, but you don't really know how to use it, you might not adopt it as much. So I think especially as we're building all of this additional functionality, right? We also need to be teaching people why they should be taking advantage of it, how it's going to make their life faster, instead of saying, "Oh, here's an AI tool. Good luck."
yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, that's insightful. Yeah, you're right. It's like it's almost like how everybody's kind of using these tools. It's like, okay, I'm going to use, like I started using Claude, and I used it for about a week or two, and I was like, okay, I don't know, let me see what I can do at Gronk. So I went to Gronk, and
Yeah.
then, all right, then I'll go to ChatGPT and use IO, for a bit. I haven't used Lambda yet,
Right.
yet,
we're
but it's like,
we're almost in this testing phase, right? As like a
hmm,
like a let me see what it says, and then I'll do it my old way if I have to. But if it's good, I'll trust it. But we're not necessarily in the, this is my single source of truth. This is where I'm going for the answer. And I think that's a good thing, right? I don't know if we
yeah,
should necessarily be relying on it for everything yet. Um, and then we talked a little bit about AI and tools, right? We've been
yeah,
doing AI ML
for a long time.
for what, years?
Yeah,
5, 10 years now. It
yeah,
just wasn't, I don't know if I could put my finger, I don't want to say it just wasn't the way it is. I don't know if it's
hmm.
marketing. I don't know if we've actually improved. I haven't actually talked to any PMs behind it. But I do, sorry, I'm gathering my thoughts.
No,
I
no,
am
it's okay.
interested.
You're onto something really important. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where it goes in the future. I don't know if we're at the point yet where we could say like this is a complete differentiator.
Okay. All
Right.
right. So this is like so picking up on that thought. No, first of all, what's the cat's name?
That was Michael. He's needy. He's always needy.
Michael?
Michael Scott. I'm from Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Oh
Like all
my
of
God.
this.
How cool. All
Yeah.
right, Michael. Well, if he becomes needy, introduce him to everybody. All right.
Absolutely. If he comes back, I'll make sure I pick him up and you can say hello.
All right. Awesome. Um, the we have well, we've had machine learning, in the networking industry for decades, right? And um, so when I first came into the industry, the main network that businesses ran on was something from IBM, called SNA, and so that
Mhm.
was kind of mainframes and terminal service, and it was very static, right? If you had an outage of a wide area link, you lost everything, that was below that. Um, then I got a demo. Then I started working at a company called Digital Equipment Corporation, DEC for short, and DEC had a precursor to TCP/IP called DECnet. And so the first time I saw DECnet, we disconnected a link, and then the network reconfigured itself. To me, that was like a holy shit moment. That's like, are you kidding me? It just
Yeah. It
reconfigures.
remembered.
Yeah, you don't have to do anything, to it. And then I started to understand how routing tables work and how, Dijkstra was used to run to determine like all the routes, and how, how networking or TCP/IP kind of work. Um, so that was really the first kind of machine learning, that we've had in our industry for a long, long time. And at that time, too, there was a lot of discussion in the industry that do you really need people to kind of manage networks since they can kind of take care of themselves? That was the thinking at the time, and
Which I'm
so
sure was
there,
just as terrifying then.
yeah, well, like a lot of people were like, "Oh, okay, well then I'm going to be out of a job pretty soon, so I don't need to do this, and then kind of fast forward, we've had the biggest growth in our industry ever. It's like in terms of people, we need people. So yeah, I'm on. So we have had this technology built within the network for a long time, and that's why it's so reliable. But like moving forward and the kind of the tool experimentation, I think you're absolutely right. Like people, they're going to be looking at their workflows and what they're doing and how a tool might be able to help them in their tool in their in their task that they're doing. And I think that's a beautiful thing to have experimentation and to not to being exposed, to a wide range of tools to see what's really going to work for you or not. And so I think that will sort itself out, probably within the next 12 to 18-month time frame from the operational point of view, you
Right.
know. So
Well, and especially when you bring people together and they start talking, because it takes one person to be like, "Hey, I use this and it worked great for me,"
yeah,
right? Whether that's on a Reddit thread or a comment somewhere or a forum somewhere or on Twitter where they're like, "Hey, I put this thing on my network and it was great."
yeah,
It takes one of those for someone else to hop on and be like, "I'm going to try that too,"
yeah,
you know.
yeah,
And I do think we're at this point where everyone's testing different things. There hasn't necessarily been a shakeout of a winner yet.
by far, yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, it's like it's interesting because like we started kind of the ONU community about 12 years ago, and it was really just for that reason. It was like we called it the peer permission structure, like fancy word, but it's like what what we were able to create is that it was a place, a space, for IT executives to be able to talk to each other about what's working, what's not working. And so it kind of cut through all of the kind of the Gartner stuff and, and the
Yep.
vendor marketing stuff and really hear from others who are kind of struggling with the same kind of issues that you're having. And so I'm really bullish, I think, on this, as we kind of branded the conference the AI Networking Summit, that this can be one of the places where people can experiment with a wide range of tools and then share what they're experiencing and what's working for them. So that could help accelerate the rise to the top, which tools are actually going to work out really well, for the industry.
Yeah, which
You know.
Which having that community to have those conversations is so valuable, especially when you're talking to other people in your role. I mean, I've learned so much just interacting with other people. I mean, you can only be exposed to, or you only get exposed to what's in front of you at work, right? There's, in my case, when I was working at Cisco, it was all Cisco. There's a whole industry out there, right? And
Right.
from interacting with the community and getting asked questions in my comments, I'd start going off and doing my own research on other things outside of my, work environment that I wouldn't necessarily have been exposed to otherwise. And I mean, that's the same thing when you bring people
Mm.
together and they start talking. You'll learn things or be exposed to things or come across different tools that you might not have come across otherwise. Um, and as far as the summit goes, what is the general agenda? Are we talking about how to build AI networks, how to support AI applications, what AI is going into new products, all of the above?
Yeah, kind of all of the above. Yeah, like maybe kind of a quick rundown. Like at least for the first morning, like on those keynotes. So like I think there's like 55, 60 sessions, that are going to take place. So we have kind of the main stage area, and then there are like four tracks, and there's a track around AI networking, AI cybersecurity, AI automation, and then AI infrastructure itself, right? So it's kind of like that's like AI, or basically networking for AI is kind of the AI infrastructure one. The
Mm.
AI networking is like AI for networks and security is the way to think about that.
You'll
Um,
cover you'll cover all the bases.
yeah, all those are going to be covered, and but the morning. So, like, let me give you like just an idea in the morning. So, the first keynote is from a gentleman named Svi Gal. Svi is the CTO at the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center. So it's the best cancer center, maybe the best. It's like one of the most prestigious cancer centers like on the planet. And so Svi's going to talk about the EIA infrastructure he put in place, and how the researchers are kind of using that and what the outcomes that they've gotten. So they've been able to accelerate cancer research by like 15 years. They've been able to cure, two to three cancers, and they think that they are going to be able to cure a lot more. It's like
It's crazy.
I don't want to take Spies thunder, but it's what's happening in healthcare and pharmaceuticals and in finance are just they're miracles. They're engineered miracles. So anyway, so we want to like expose that to people, and I think every industry is working on their miracle. And
Mm.
so the key thing there then though is that we need to democratize this technology. It's concentrated by one company. I don't want to knock Nvidia at all, even though saying that sometimes is a knock. But they've done an amazing job in developing an architecture like a $3 trillion design center with GPU clusters, and that's an amazing contribution to the industry. But and they offer a very vertically integrated solution set. Their software stack is just amazing now. But we need to have more democratization. We need to have a lot more solutions. Like when we started doing the internet back in the early 90s, there wasn't one company that was supplying everything. It was an
Yeah.
open playing field, and a lot of companies got to make contributions. And so we need to do that. And so we're going to have we have presentations from the GMs of AMD's networking and their GPU area that morning. We have the GM of Cisco data center speaking. We're going to have a really great panel that's run by a guy named Andy Brown. Andy is going to be talking about the return on investment of AI. So is AI basically to be viewed as any other technology? It's like, okay, we're going to invest it, but we're going to expecting a return like in 2 or 3 years, and we're going to process it that way. Or is it like as the cloud service providers are thinking that it's a strategic investment, and that
Right.
there's a platform investment, and that we're just adding intelligence to everything we're doing, and if you're not doing it, you're going to just be so far left behind. And so to them, that's a strategic platform investment. And so that's why they're spending like $220 billion or so this year. So
which
anyway, I think
which is a crazy amount of money.
crazy. And that's just the 220 billion. That's really just for hardware. So like you have to factor in the data centers, the power, that's that they're spending, the staffing that they're doing, the
I
facility,
talk to
itself.
Every time I talk to someone in commercial real estate, they're like data centers are the number one thing being built. I remember I was out in Switzerland at the beginning of August on vacation, and I was out at a bar hanging out. This guy came over to talk to me, and I said, "What do you do?" And he was like, "I work in commercial real estate." And I was like, "No way, I work in tech." And we started talking about all the data centers that are being built. I'm like, "I'm in Switzerland. This is going on here too. Like what?" Um, but it's
Yeah,
everywhere, right? And as we're figuring out how to adopt like we're talking about how to adopt the technology where it's going, but it's another thing, like you said, to bring in AMD and NVIDIA, where we're now talking about developing it, right,
yeah,
and making it even better.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's the morning. Yeah, Broadcom is there too. Broadcom is going to be talking about like their AI offerings too. We have Microsoft is there, HP is there. So we want to expose the community to our wide range of options because, frankly, I think the thing I'm not sure if you feel this way, but I'm so excited knowing kind of what I've known around putting together this program with obviously we have a team doing this. But it's like I think for folks who are in our industry, you know, um, we get to improve the human experience, by
Mhm.
enabling these miracles to happen, And to me, like I was around in the building of the internet, and that was great. We made a huge global economic contribution, and we improved the lives of like hundreds of millions and billions of people around the world. This is going to be just so much bigger, than that, and I think that is something to be so excited about. And
Um,
you know, um,
I'm
yeah,
excited. I think I
yeah,
told you before we got on this call, I wouldn't consider myself extremely AI literate. I'm just trying to figure it out like everyone else. So
yeah,
I'm excited to go up to New York and learn for sure. As far as and I'm assuming this is going to be published before the summit.
yeah.
How can people tune in if they're not in New York?
Yeah, it's going to be broadcast also live on the Hopin platform. So if they just go up to like AI networking summit.com, they can register, there. So that's free. Anyone can just like plug in and watch it. Some of the sessions, like the morning sessions I just talked about, some of them are going to be broadcast on X Spaces, Facebook, Facebook Live. LinkedIn, live.
Cool.
Yeah. So like, yeah, I think those three platforms, so yeah, so some of the sessions will be there. Yeah. I think like, you and John are going to be doing like a pre-show. That would be broadcast. That's going to be broadcast out to all the social platforms, as well. So yeah. And if you're in New
Awesome.
York, if you want like, if you're, well, really, it's not just New York. It's like we got people coming from Europe and all over really all over the country. But we have the space. It's like we doubled up on space from last year, so it's registration is like freaking crazy right now. I gotta say, so maybe I shouldn't be saying we got the space. So it's
Sounds
like
like it's going to be a party.
it's gonna be a party. And tell you, Alexis, I'm not sure if you're planning on staying for the end, but there's a cocktail. We have a rooftop, so we're going to be up on the roof. Um, there's a really good band that we have, and that there people are able to kind of come in and join for a song. And so we have a lot of people in the community that play instruments, or they sing really
That's
well,
cool.
and so so they're going to join in. Yeah, so like if you play an instrument, and you want to join in, just let us know, and we'll kind of get you
Played
up there.
trumpet. I played trumpet for 9 years. I don't know if it's that kind of instrument.
Actually, no, if a
Ben,
trumpet.
it's been a while. It's been a while, Nick. I don't think I've touched it since college.
You're gonna have
Should
to
probably
dust that
stay.
off.
No, I should stay in the closet.
Oh, that's funny. All right. Well, actually, I do have one quick question, and get your view on it, and so the way that we built kind of this infrastructure, it's kind of static, and from the point of view is that we have applications and workloads, and we try to project what the capacity is going to be needed in order to support that and what the demand from the consumption of that application is. And so there's a lot of kind of guessing work on that. When we start to get a lot more AI applications, we don't know how they're going to behave, right? We don't know what their traffic profiles are going to be. We don't know what their latency requirements are going to be. We don't know what their burstiness, is going to be.
Right.
All of those dimensions that we've kind of engineered infrastructure for before, we just don't know what that's going to be. But I think my view of this is that we're now building intelligence into this infrastructure in a way that we've never been able to build before. And so there should be now a new relationship between the application and the infrastructure that isn't right now. That relationship is that it's a person. All right. So like you're a network engineer, you're talking to the developers, you're trying to understand what the workload on that's going to be, and you try to plan your capacity for that. I'm kind of thinking that that gets automated, and that
It
there's got to be a handshake, So I don't know. What's your view on that?
it'll it'll be interesting for sure. I think it almost goes back to the conversation around like cloud computing, right? That's what AWS did with the cloud, where you can reserve computing resources on demand and rent them and only pay for them when you need them as much as you needed. So if you had a really busy Saturday, you could spin up more compute, make sure your applications had enough power, power it down when you're done, not pay for it anymore, right? I think that's a lot harder to do from maybe not a WAN perspective, like what Megaport's doing. You can spin up links on demand, close them down when you're done, no harm, no
Hmm.
foul. I think that's a lot more difficult when we start talking about like enterprise networking, your LAN, your campus, your access layer. If you could spin up an access layer on demand,
Hmm.
maybe then we wouldn't have any jobs, right?
Yeah.
Um, but as like you said, as far as the burstiness and traffic engineering, um, someone will have to come up with a way to regulate that. Whether that's like an extension of SD-WAN, right, with like application aware routing and QoS policies, things like that. I'm not sure.
Yeah. I think all of those pieces kind of, get tied together. It's like, and you're right. This is kind of like this is speculation. So it's like, you know, there'll be groups of companies that will definitely that are working on this, right? And so it's like, okay, do we redefine QoS? Do we redefine how routes are created? So can AI, as we move AI into the protocol stack, can they provide a security posture for a route that is dictated by a policy that adheres to? Is there a real dollar sign cost to that link? Is there latency requirements to that link? So I'm thinking that there's going to be there's a change afoot. How that gets implemented is TBT or to be
Well,
seen.
and if you're implementing those policies like on demand like that, that's nothing that a human could inherently change. You're not going to have someone sitting there monitoring it, clicking on and off and on and off and on and off. You would have to have AI doing that to almost self-regulate.
Yeah,
Um, so
yeah, and I think it goes back to like you mentioned this, early on around the tools. We're experimenting, and we're also in that process of experimentation. You're either building or destroying trust, right? And so we're in a phase of kind of figuring out if we trust these tools, and so that's a really important kind of point. So anyway,
100%.
Alexis, this was like so much fun. I really so enjoyed chatting with you, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in New York. I'm so excited that you're going to be emceeing along with John. I think you guys are going to be like such an epic duo. Really excited
John,
about
John
that.
and I have a lot of fun together. It's it's gonna be a great time.
How awesome! Okay. Well, Alexis, thanks so much. And thank you everyone for plugging in, listening. See you all in New York.
Yeah.